Record. Okay, so we are recording today's podcast, webinar, Zoom call, whatever we're calling this. We have some questions that we want to go over, so hopefully this will be helpful for people. If you have other questions as we go through this, feel free to interrupt and just scream at me. All right, so the question that we've had a couple times, and we had somebody actually email me this question, and then we actually had somebody yesterday ask the same question again, is about how do we judge our supplements that we're currently taking, or buying a supplement, or my friends having a supplement, or my daughter's taking a supplement. How do I know if it's a good supplement or maybe not such a good supplement? So rating different supplements is important. You know, if you're not a nutritionist, you haven't had any education in this background, it's hard to tell whether something's good or not. So that does become complicated. So even if it says something great on the label, we know for a fact that that doesn't mean that that's really what's in the product. Matter of fact, a couple of years ago, there was an independent study that took, I think, a Walmart supplement, a GNC supplement, a Walgreens supplement, and a Target supplement, and they were all echinacea, which is an herb for immune boosting. And they sent it to an independent lab, and all of them came back with almost no echinacea in it. Now that's really hard to believe, how a supplement company can be so blatantly dishonest. But understand, this is all driven by capital. It's all driven by capital. So the companies that I use, most of them I've toured their facilities and I see what they do in testing their product. So I like to use companies that are extremely anal in perfectionism and go to the extreme about perfection in their products, that they'll get a product in bulk, because these companies, they buy product in bulk and then they will mix them and put them together and sell them. So they literally get a pallet with a ginormous package of echinacea, ground echinacea root from some supplier. And then a good company will do a lab test on it. And they'll do multiple lab tests with multiple samples to see if it actually has the constituents that are labeled on it that they purchased. And if it doesn't, it gets sent back. That's why sometimes our supplements are on back order, because the companies that we use are extremely anal with their perfectionistic tendencies, and they will refuse to sell something that is less than perfect. So they just deny it, and it gets sent back, and then it's like, okay, now they don't have curcumin for 2 weeks. So that was the last order of Curcuclear that we had. We were back ordered for like 2 weeks on it, or 3 weeks, and we had like, it was a mess. So that happens quite frequently with us. But I would rather err on that side than err on giving people fake stuff. But we're not going to talk about fake stuff here. We're going to talk about how you can look at a label. One person had a question: is coral calcium good for you? Because you'll get a lot of misinformation out there too. So that's what we're going to try to clarify here: misinformation. So there's a lot of articles out there that coral calcium is the best calcium to consume, because it comes from sea coral from Okinawa, Japan. There was a book written a number of years ago, I think it was back even in the 80s, about coral calcium from Okinawa, Japan. And somehow that was the key to the Okinawans living so long, was the coral calcium that they ate. And that became a huge hit and a huge topic, and somebody built a nutrition empire on that and made millions. And unfortunately, it's all misinformation. So you're just getting my opinion here. So there may be somebody who sells coral calcium that's going to differ completely with my opinion, but I'm going to share with you my opinion and why I have that opinion. So coral calcium is from coral. It's if you break it down and you look at the back of this, it is calcium carbonate. Now, I'm not picking on this company. I just pulled this label, this picture off the internet today when I put this presentation together, or yesterday. So I'm not picking on this company, but they are exploiting a trend that's based upon the theory that coral calcium is so good for you. So coral calcium is calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is limestone. That's what coral is made of, is limestone. So limestone is not the type of calcium that we're supposed to consume. So I'm going to give you a lot of information in this little presentation here, but it all boils down to one sentence, if you could remember this. If you could eat your food as closely to the way that God created it for us to eat, then you're going to err on the right side. We are not supposed to eat dirt. That's where you'll find calcium carbonate. We live in Minnesota. There's a lot of calcium carbonate in the soil around here. There's a lot of limestone. So we're not supposed to consume limestone. Hey, if I want to alkalize my garden because I'm testing the soil and it's too acidic, I may put limestone on my garden. That limestone is a good source of calcium for my plants, not for me. So it's a good source of calcium for my plants. I don't know what happened to my screen. Can you see that? That's really weird. Is it something you guys did? Somebody have the color button on? That's what coral calcium is. Oh, it's on every slide. That's really weird. I don't know if you guys can see that red.
Mm-hmm.
Can you see that?
Yes.
That is really weird. So I've never seen that before. So we'll keep going. It's somebody from the Coral Calcium Foundation that's trying to. So calcium carbonate is in the soil. Plants take calcium carbonate, and then plants convert it to calcium lactate and calcium glycinate. And then we eat plants. So if you want to take minerals, like, oh my gosh, I need to take calcium because I have bone loss, if that was your thought process. And we could talk about whether a person with bone loss should take calcium at another time. But if my choice was to take calcium, I want to take a calcium supplement that is as close to the way that I would get it in a food. So then I would either take a food-based calcium lactate, which there's companies that make that. Standard Process is one company that makes calcium lactate. Or I would take a calcium that has a double bond to a glycine. And it's like, how am I going to know that? Well, this next slide goes over that. So here's coral calcium. Look at its elemental calcium. It's actually calcium carbonate. There's no way that you should consume this. I'm going to stop the screen share and start the screen share again just to see if that changes that color on there, okay? Yay. So I don't know what that was about. So this is what you'd see on the back of a label of a supplement that you shouldn't eat. So this is coral calcium, and this is not the back of the label of that supplement, that picture here. So I'm not picking on that specific one. And then this has vitamin A is retinol palmitate. That's not a great source of vitamin A. This is vitamin C, just as ascorbic acid. We'll talk about that. And vitamin E as D-alpha tocopherol. We'll talk about that. And then the minerals are as oxides, as oxides, as oxides. That's a really, really poor source of mineral right there. Nobody should be consuming zinc oxide. So not a good supplement, and I just stole this picture off the internet too, so I have no idea what product that this belonged to, but this is a really poor supplement there. Well, how do I know? Well, the calcium is not as a double bonded glycine. I'll show you how you'd see that, a good label in a second. It says elemental calcium, or it should be listed as calcium carbonate, and these are as oxide forms of minerals. So it already gives me hints that I don't want to take this supplement. Here's another picture of a supplement. This is a multiple, and it has vitamin A as retinol palmitate, and then some as beta carotene. That's a better form of vitamin A right there. Let's go down. Here's the D-alpha tocopherol again. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And then how you can tell on the vitamin Bs is they'll have a very specific amount of vitamin B. Now this is more difficult to tell, but when you see a vitamin B that has 50 milligrams, 50 milligrams, 50 milligrams, 50 milligrams, then you know it's a synthetic B. But this is the kicker for this supplement right here. So anytime you look at a multi-supplement and you can tell if it's a good multi or a bad multi partly by going down and looking at the form of folate they use and the form of B12 they use in a multi. The folate used in this multi is folic acid. Folic acid, if you've watched any of my genetic videos, is synthetic folate. Folate is a B vitamin that's found in foliage. Green leafy vegetables have folate. So folate is necessary to make methyl tetrahydrofolate through the folate pathway, and that goes in to form methyl groups that turn genes on and off, and it's a very important supplement. What happened is that at the turn of the last century, not very many Americans, especially in inner cities like New York and things like that, were eating a lot of foliage because it wasn't readily available. So the staple diet in the middle of large cities was mainly potatoes that could be stored and grains, flour, wheat, bread, things like that, and meat. So that was the typical diet. They weren't eating hardly any foliage. So they were not getting, the only source of folate from them wasn't foliage because they weren't eating it. But there's also folate in the outer husk of wheat. So if you ate whole wheat bread, you'd get some folate. But then in the early 1900s, they came out with a new way to store flour, because if we just grind wheat and store it, the outer husk has all the nutrients in it. It also has some oil in it. Wheat germ oil is in that outer husk. Well, the oil makes the flour spoil quicker, so it had a short shelf life. But however, the wonderful companies that control our country found out that if we take the outer husk off the wheat, then it has a very long shelf life. So it helps grocers be able to store more, and it doesn't go bad so they don't have waste, and it makes very fluffy bread. So everybody loved it. So the advent of white flour, people lost folate in their diet, especially in inner cities. So they weren't getting folate in their diet. It also exposed the gluten in the wheat, so people were starting to develop gluten sensitivities, but had no idea at that time. So they lost all the nutrients, and they were starting to develop gluten problems and developing gut problems, and now they were having folate deficiencies. And now mothers were giving birth to babies with neural tube defects, spina bifidas and such. So then the research went back to what's causing all these neural tube defects, and they found out that it was a deficiency in folate. So then, in their wise wisdom, discovered that we could create folate in the laboratory, and we'll call it folic acid, and we'll patent it. Well, said somebody, probably, it's not the same as folate that's in nature. Well, of course it's not the same, said the boss. We're going to call it folic acid so we can patent it, we can sell it, and we can fortify all the white flour with folic acid. And sure enough, it did prevent neural tube defects because it was similar enough to folate. The problem is it's not folate, and you can't make things in the laboratory that are going to work the same way as God created them. So folic acid has now caused all sorts of problems. It causes defects in our genes in the folate pathway. So now we have our current generation, and maybe you have methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase gene defects caused by folic acid supplemented as a synthetic folate in our supplements, like this one right here. And in our foods, like if you go back and look at your back of your Wheaties box, it has folic acid in it. So we took out the supplements, we took out the good nutrients from the food, and we supplement crappy stuff back that actually cause more problems than good. So that is what folic acid is. Folic acid is synthetic folate. So it's listed as folate as folic acid. So it's folic acid in this product, which me and hundreds of other nutritionists believe that folic acid should be literally outlawed as a poison. And it's not, because it's cheap and we can put it in a supplement. So understand, if you and I were going to open up a supplement company, okay, we're going to start a supplement company. And so we're going to buy these products, all these different things. We buy them in bulk from different suppliers. Okay, we can have beta-carotene. Do you want the retinol palmitate? That costs $450 a pallet load. Or do you want beta-carotene? That costs $600 a pallet load. We'll pick that one. It's cheaper. Okay, do you want just ascorbic acid as vitamin C? Because technically, legally, that's what vitamin C is. No, we want the whole food vitamin C as found in nature. Oh, well, ascorbic acid's only, $300 a pallet load. The whole food vitamin C, that's going to be $1,400 a pallet load. Okay, never mind. We'll just take this one. And we go down the list this way, and you formulate a supplement with not a nutritionist, but with an economist trying to make money for my company, and we pick like this stuff, and we put a twist on it, so that we can market it, and we hire a good marketing company, and we sell a lot of supplements. No different than McDonald's theory is that we don't have to have the best hamburger, we just have to have the best marketing. And McDonald's has done quite well with that belief system. And so do a lot of supplement companies like this one. We could point out a bunch of other stuff that's in here that it's not a good form of product. Methylcobalamin, that's a better form of B12, but it also depends on the dosage. Well, it's not a high dosage, so if cyanocobalamin wasn't on this list, and this wasn't on this list, and some of these other things that weren't on this list, I would say it's not necessarily a bad supplement, because methylcobalamin is a good form of B12. But you can't have a very high dose if you have defects on your biopterin pathway, but that's another story. Cyanocobalamin is a synthetic B12 that nobody should be consuming. So these are just little hints. So if you know some of these, like, oh, don't eat anything with folic acid in it. Okay, so you won't have to know anything else I said, but if you could just know that, you'd go, this is the supplement that my daughter's taking. Throw this in the trash. You should not even give it to the dog. Okay? Still with me? So, the hint about minerals. So one of the things that you look at that's quick tell for good supplement, bad supplement is folate and B12. Another hint is the minerals. So remember I said on this slide, if it's calcium carbonate or an elemental calcium or an oxide, we don't necessarily want to use that. Here's a supplement that we use, and you see it says bisglycinate. So all the minerals are chelated with a glycine, and the bis means it's a double bond to a glycine. That's how it would be found in nature. So that double bond, so chemistry here, potassium double bonded to glycine, that's how you get it across the gut wall. So that is really important. Now this company right here, this is the company we use, PHP, for our minerals here. They don't make the mineral. So you'll see in so many companies, this Trax right here. Trax is the supplier who supplies a really good mineral to supplement companies. They don't sell directly to the public. They don't bottle their own. This is a company that understands physiology, and they said, we're going to create the best mineral on the market, and that's their company, right? And then they sell it to supplement companies to make their own supplements out of it. So if you see something that says Trax like that, you know it's a good mineral. But they only do minerals, Trax does. So, but then you know it's a good mineral. So that's how you can tell these little hints on good supplement, bad supplement. Still with me? I told you back here that vitamin E here, one of the ways you can tell it's bad is if partly it depends on what you're trying to do with the vitamin E. But vitamin E and vitamin C, let's talk about that for a second. So vitamin C, when it was first discovered, it was back in the 1920s-ish or 30s-ish, and the level of microscopy they had, the strength of their microscopes was such that they could only see the outer shell of the molecule. And with vitamin C and vitamin E, this is true. So the discoverer of vitamin C saw the outer shell and he called it ascorbic acid. And he won a Nobel Prize for discovering vitamin C. 2 years later, he discovered, since the microscopes improved in that time, that, oh my gosh, that's not vitamin C. Same thing happened with vitamin E. That's only the outer shell. There's a whole inner part of the vitamin C molecule. So we went back to the board of drugs who was naming and defining these nutrients, and they said, oh, sorry, we already have it in the records. This happened with E and C, that ascorbic acid is vitamin C. Now, if you want to say there's more to it, that's fine, but in the records, that's what vitamin C is. So legally, ascorbic acid is vitamin C. But vitamin C found in nature is not ascorbic acid. That's like saying the shell of the peanut is the peanut. Nope, because that's what we found first. It's the shell of the peanut. Now, the shell of the peanut might have some benefits to it, but it's not the peanut, right? The inner part's the peanut, but no, it's the shell of the peanut. So we're going to put peanut shells in our supplement, let's say if peanuts were a nutrient, and we're going to be able to call it vitamin P for peanuts, but no, wait, we're not getting any of the peanut butter. That's what we really want. Well, sorry, legally it's the vitamin C is the ascorbic acid. So literally with vitamin C ascorbic acid here, all you're getting is the outer shell of the vitamin C found in nature. That's why I don't prescribe vitamin C very often, because you need the whole food vitamin C. It's always best to get your nutrients from food itself. And then a supplement itself is supposed to be just that, a supplement to your food. So that's why when somebody says, hey, I want a multiple vitamin, I just want a multiple vitamin, I say, well, then buy greens first or something and start taking that, because that's going to be your best multiple. You're not going to find a multiple vitamin that's a whole food very easily. Vitamin E, the same thing. I got a picture of that. Vitamin E family is formed by the inner part in the tocotrienols. And you have 4 pieces of the tocotrienol, alpha, beta, gamma, delta tocotrienol. The outer part, which was first discovered, has 4 outer shells that are called the tocopherols, alpha, beta, gamma, delta tocopherol. Most vitamin E supplements, most supplements that are multiples, simply throw in alpha tocopherol. It's really easy to synthesize in a laboratory. We can make a batch of it for fairly cheap, and we can sell it on the market for fairly cheap to companies who don't really give a rip about the patients who are going to swallow it. And they'll put it in as, oh yeah, we have vitamin E right here, 60 IUs of vitamin E. Well, what is it? It's alpha tocopherol. It's just this. Well, excuse me, you do not have vitamin E. You have the outer shell of 8 components of the vitamin E molecule found in nature. Matter of fact, I just told my staff this morning, because we were just mentioning this, and I said there was a study done about 3, 4, or 5 years ago, because vitamin E is really good for your heart. But guess which portion of vitamin E is really good for your heart? It's actually the delta tocotrienol that's really good for your vessels. But they did a study a few years ago, I think, to disprove nutrients, and they tested vitamin E for your heart, and it got published that vitamin E does not help people with heart disease. And guess what they used? Alpha tocopherol. They used the outer shell. This doesn't even help your heart. Of course, it wasn't going to test out perfect. It wasn't going to test out correct that it helps your heart. And of course, it got published. It was was noted on CNN News that vitamin E was just found in a study from blah, 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 that it does not help your heart. So all these people telling that vitamin E helps your heart wasn't even true. So it gets discouraging, you know, if you don't read the study.
Probably, I think the backside of the garage would probably, single would be fine.
Okay, sorry about that, but I'm going to have to mute somebody.
Uh-huh.
So,
Yeah, and just double this one right up here and that one over there. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
okay, sorry about that. So that's what we're looking at with all the supplements are very similar to that. And it gets very discouraging for you as a patient or as a consumer. You go like, oh, for crying out loud, how am I supposed to know these things? I don't know this stuff. I'm not going to learn all this stuff. That's why just learning some of these hints can be helpful. So if all you learned is you look at folate, what's the form of folate? Because it'll always, if it just says folate here, and then look down at the bottom, if it says folate as folate, or folate as methyl tetrahydrofolate, then you know, hey, they cared. But if it says folate as folic acid, then you go, hey, whoever formulated this did not give a rip about the folate that's in there. They put folic acid. Then I don't need to look any further. Cross this supplement off my list. Follow me? So look for those hints. It's B12 and it's cyanocobalamin. I'm not looking any further. It's vitamin E as only alpha tocopherol. I'm not looking any further. Now, the only thing that I would say that's the caveat of that is that if it's a specific nutrient that you're trying to drive only one piece of that pathway, I have a supplement called Deltanol that only has the delta tocotrienol because we're trying to help the vessels. So we use that for people that have vascular problems, vascular disease and heart disease. We're not using it for the things that the tocopherols are good for, which are the skin. We're using it for the vessel. Understand? So if we're trying to drive a certain pathway, that's a different story. But when you look at a multiple and they put in these fractional supplements that are all synthetic, that's bad news. That's not good. They don't care. So hopefully that clears up a little bit in understanding it and doesn't cause more confusion. But if you look at those little pieces, that can be helpful to tell you whether the supplement company, whoever put it together, really cares or not. So I know I'm going to open it up here so that I'm going to unmute everybody. So if you guys have questions, you can speak in. Any questions right now?
Yeah.
Yes?
I didn't even see the car come back the other way. He didn't have his headlights on.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to mute everybody again. Okay, essential oils and the Rife. So another question is, can I use essential oils with the Rife machine? The answer is yes. There is an essential oil folder on the Rife. So if you look on the Rife, go back to the home screen, go to Open Home, go back to the home screen, there's a folder with all the essential oils in it. So understand, essential oils work on frequencies. That's how they work. So essential oils are frequencies, and we have the frequencies in your Rife machine of most of the essential oils through the Young Living brand essential oils. So you can run those frequencies. They're only like 3 to 9 minutes. You can run those frequencies in place of, in lieu of an essential oil itself, or you can put the essential oil on and then run that program and accentuate the value of the essential oil. So then, therefore, you can actually use a little bit less essential oil. So it can be very beneficial. So use those. My only caveat with essential oils is don't use too much of them. They're very powerful and they can be hard on your liver if they're absorbed. So be careful. I've had patients come in that had essential oil toxicity. What I determined is essential oil toxicity, and they got better when I took them off their essential oils. So the essential oils are very close to pharmaceuticals. They're very concentrated herbs. So be careful with them. They can be hard on your liver. So my rule is 2 to 3 a day. That's it. And be careful too much of anything. Remember, too much of a good thing is a bad thing. Too much of a good thing is a bad thing. But use the essential oil programs. That's much safer. You're never going to have liver overload or liver toxicity with the program itself. How do I know if I'm eliminating my toxins? Okay, I'm doing chelation, I'm doing detox. How do I know I got rid of all my toxins? That is a good question. So first of all, theoretically, we go, okay, I have mercury toxicity, so I do a mercury detox and my mercury toxicity is gone. And I got rid of all my mercury. That's theoretical dreaming. You're never going to get rid of all your toxins, number one. Well, I understand that, but how do I know that I'm going to get my toxic load down, that it is less of a problem? The only way to know that is to do some testing. So kinesiology testing will help us understand that. So if you come back and I test you again, I can test you where we're at with that toxic load. There's other toxic load testing that can be done too. So we could look at stool sample testing. There's hair analysis testing that I'm not a big fan of. There's urinary testing that that's much more accurate, but I'm not a fan of, because you have to overload on a chelator in order to measure the urine spill, the spill of the heavy metal in the urine. So the safest is kinesiology testing, in my opinion. But the truth is you have to realize that you are always toxifying yourself. So even if, okay, I clean up my diet, I'm not eating any pesticides because I'm eating all organic food now. Well, first of all, does organic food have pesticides in it? Well, no, they're not spraying pesticides on my organic food. Well, that's true, but there's crossover. So I'll guarantee if we did a chem analysis of all of our organic food in the grocery store, we would find some pesticides. So there is some in, even when we're trying to do everything positively right, we're still going to be exposed to foodborne chemicals. Secondly, we're exposed to toxins everywhere. We breathe them in. So the fastest way to get a poison in somebody's body is to inject it into their bloodstream. The second fastest way to get a poison in someone's body is to breathe it in. So when I breathe in a toxin like exhaust, I'm breathing that in. That is crossing over my alveolar spaces in my lungs, going right directly into my bloodstream. It doesn't go through digestion like something in my food does. It goes right into my bloodstream. So that is a huge source of toxicity that is really hard to get around. You know, you're going to be exposed to it. So it is leaching from your carpeting, it is leaching from your sheetrock, it is leaching from, it's just everywhere, okay? We're not talking about pesticides here, we're talking about inorganic compounds. So we're all exposed to toxins, and as long as we are toxifying ourselves at a greater rate than our body's ability to rid ourselves of those toxins, we are becoming more toxic. So do we ever stop detoxing? In a sense, we might take a break from using a support of that pathway. We might take a break from using milk thistle for a couple of days or something like that. But in reality, your body is never stopping detoxing. So you're always detoxing or you're going to die. So that's a constant process. But how do you know you're winning the battle or you're losing the battle? Is the only way to do it is to test. You can say, well, you know, I feel better, I'm not as bloated, my liver doesn't hurt anymore. Different things like that can give you hints to that. But the only perfect way to know is to go back to the test that found it in the first place. So to do that is a wise thing sometimes. So hopefully that answers that question. Okay, I'm going to open up the mute again. And
so I'm guessing she got dropped off
okay,
somewhere.
so
You know,
anybody have any questions? So you get everybody.
But anyway, she's here and she's been with me for 8 years.
Okay, so I think I muted the right person there. So anybody have questions? No? Wow. guys are good. By the way, remember you can email the questions, email it to the clinic email address, and I save those questions and we cover them. I think I covered everybody's question that they sent in, and patients that talked to me today. So this will be recorded. It'll be up on Facebook within the next hour or so. And I appreciate everybody, and we will talk very soon again. Thanks much.